still running. Also very involved in community activities. So back in the day, one of the founders of the community in Frankfurt, and also in 2014 when I moved here, then one of the founders of the community in Saigon. And if you want to follow me on social media, the links are below.
Hello, my name is Daniel. I was in Germany too. I moved to Vietnam in 2017, and there was also the year when I learned about Bitcoin and started investing in Ethereum, and went all the way up with the market and all the way down again. And now I'm learning about how to get rich slow, so learning about crypto and Bitcoin.
So I mean, as that, this is not like promoting any short-term tricks or something how to get rich quick. So if you're looking for this, that might not be the right talk here today. So today we will be talking more about the kind of mindset which you need when it comes to investments or general decisions in life which help you to get ahead, be it financially, be it mentally, be it physically, how to make good decisions which help you to improve your life in the long run.
The important term we need to talk about in this context is time preference, which in economics means how much you value receiving goods at the present time as opposed to in the future time, or more generally, how much you value the present over the future. So at one hand, you have the high time preference, so you put a lot of value on the present, or low time preference, so you put more value on the future. And small children have very high time preference. Typically, there was this famous experiment where children were given cookies, and they were told you can either have one cookie now, or you can wait 15 minutes to get 2 cookies. And the smaller the children are, the more they tend to eat the cookie immediately. And in this study, when the children were studied 20 years later, the children could delay their gratification to the future. They tended to be more successful later in life. So the spectrum of time preference, you have satisfying your urgent desires on one end, which is high time preference, and the low time preference, which is planning for the future, accumulating resources. And
that's, by the way, quite a good book which is also made for young children, which explains the concept of time preference in a playful way. So we have 2 people living on an island basically, and one guy on the island is working, let's say, 5 hours a day to catch 5 fish, and the rest of the day he just kind of a lazy bum, doesn't do much of anything, and that's his life. And the other guy is also working 5 hours a day to catch 5 fish and just not be hungry, but he spent the rest of the day then to build a fishing net. And 1 month later, he has the fishing net built. And after this month, so basically the first guy who didn't invest his time, so because cost basically, because he's not hanging out lazily, he has to work harder because he's been working also building the fishing net. But the first guy is still stuck with like, okay, he has to work 5 hours, catch 5 fish, while the other guy can now only work 1 hour per day to catch the same amount of fish. And then either be lazy for 9 hours or spend the time otherwise to do something productive. Other scenarios could be then, for example, that the second guy who built the fishing net was 2 hours per day, catches 10 fish, gives the first guy 5 fish, so he can survive and get the first guy basically do something for him. Maybe he gets him to build a house or something for him. Or another scenario that guy 2 borrows the fishing net to the first guy and gets him to catch the 10 fish, which both people need to survive, and the other guy doesn't have to do anything anymore and basically can just live either of the first guy catching fish for him, or again he's spending the rest of the day doing some other productive task. So you see that's kind of like an early capitalist in a way. So he invested kind of his time with some capital goods in order to improve the production capacity of the economy which you have on the island, and therefore increases like the level of wealth which the people have on this island. So yeah, that's basically just a summarization. So to increase wealth, the cost has to be paid. So in this case, for example, the first guy then has to suffer by working more than 5 hours per day, but later on reaps the benefits by either having to work less or has more fish available. As Daniel already said, time preference is the extent to which people weigh the current consumption or future consumption. What's important is also if the enjoyment of the current consumption is higher than the future, the value you put on the future consumption, there will be no productivity improvement. So if everybody just values, okay, I just want to be lazy and I just want to eat all the fish which I catch, then you will never make kind of a step ahead. And low time preference leads to the accumulation of capital from savings and the eventual version of production technological advance. Means, for example, like the second guy on the island built a fishing net and he has then time to invent like salting techniques, so he can make the fish more durable, or some other technological advancements which help basically to improve the level of wealth and productivity on the island of this economy.
Time preference, like on one end of the spectrum we have the satisfaction of urgent desires, which we find in the natural world quite often. So that's what animals do most of the time, although some animals also build nests in the time, prepare for winter, for example. But generally, there are certain behaviors associated with high and low time preference. For example, low time preference would be taking out a loan to go on holiday. You don't have any money, but you desperately want to go on holiday, so you get a loan, so you can do that. Borrowing from the future, practically for the present. Or the opposite, high time preference would be saving your money. Low time preference would be saving up money for a deposit so you can buy a house in the future. Or another example would be when you're young, working a full-time job. You probably have more money than your friends, but that would be a high time preference. But if you instead go to university or acquire skills, you build up for your future, and then at a future point you will earn more money than everyone who didn't acquire skills. Another one more is risky behavior. So if you like bungee jumping or jumping out of planes, or like smoking or drinking, this is a very high time preference behavior for the present. Like if you join gangs or like criminal activities, stuff like that. Low time preference would be look after your health, exercise, so you can live longer, so you see like grandchildren run, for example. And there are certain things that influence our behaviors where we display low or high time preference behavior, and one of the things that does that is money. And we live in a system that with money that incentivizes us to show high time preference, because the money we use almost all over the world loses its value over time, and so we are incentivized to consume and to buy assets with your money, so that you don't lose value.
Some examples here of low time preference versus high time preference habits. For example, on the left, that's high time preference example. Oh, we switched it, but anyway. So you don't really value your time, you just go to McDonald's, Dunkin' Donuts or whatever, eat some junk food, while on the other side, if you spend your time, drink some healthy food, you spend the time now, but it has then in the long run different outcomes. Either you are healthy and in good shape, or not so much in good shape, or you spend your time, you get like the dopamine hit to just hang around, play video games all day, versus studying, learning new skills, which also will then have in the long run different outcomes. So either you are more likely to be successful when you acquire these skills, while if you don't, then probably you are not as useful for society, which comes with different economic outcomes. Or you used to spend all your money versus thinking about how you can invest the money and saving up for later, which then in turn also might have different outcomes in the long run for your life. And it's also, I mean, we are not going to detail this, it's probably worth a different talk altogether, but like compound effect is important to understand in this context. It means like if you keep improving just a little and a little over time, at some point, what we have seen, you will have vastly different outcomes, good decisions for your life in the long run versus if you are doing bad decisions. That will show in the long run quite differently in the outcomes. Time preference increases in times of crisis. This means that, I mean, we're thinking about, okay, saving for the long run and whatever. Of course, when you have crises like this, like war or generally like economic devastation, you're probably more concerned just to survive the day and are not thinking ahead like, okay, I'm not saving to build a house or whatever, because if your house might get bombed tomorrow, then it might not have been a smart decision to try to save on the money. You just want to survive to the next day. So we'll have in the society basically induced a high time preference order, so people just think, okay, how to survive the day, and they have more criminal activity because people just don't think for the long run, because they don't know if there's a long run for them. As Daniel already said, money plays an important role there. You can see here on the right side how the value of the Venezuelan bolivar developed over the last couple of years. Insane inflation. And you see on the other side what happens then. Basically, people are consuming the capital goods. In this case, they're eating the zoo animals because they have nothing else left to eat. So you see high time preference is taking over. So money as a basis for lowering the time preference. You see here again, if you use that money, and right now we are also in a cycle basically where we are probably on a global scale using quite that money. You see that there's a correlation between how much money is out there and like the asset prices, in this case the stock market. In order to protect the value, people are just investing in the stock market or real estate in order to not get inflated away. On the right, that's an example which some of you might have heard of. This was this lady which in the 80s invested in some saving bonds or something, like 7 ounces of gold or something like this. And when she wanted to take it out of the bank, because it was converted to the local fiat currency here, there was not really anything left. Right now in Europe, also big crisis. Suddenly we have negative interest rates, which is against kind of the natural order of like the time preference, because basically what it means is you're borrowing somebody money and he promises you to give you back less in the future, and normally you wouldn't do this. That money leads to another investment. Okay.
It's interesting what the type of money we use, how it influences almost everything. One example is art. This is from the Sistine Chapel in Rome. It was created in the early 16th century, and required a very long-term planning. So does anyone know what the artists was paid in which currency? Any guess?
Let me see.
No, it was gold. Because gold is a relatively sound mine, so it appreciates slowly over time. It's not volatile, and the supply of gold is predictable. And yeah, so if you plan this still earns revenue like 500 years later. People pay to see this, and compare this to like the art that unsound money produces. This is a painting by Mark Rothko called Untitled Yellow and Blue. It was sold for almost $50 million US dollars. And this requires no planning or whatsoever. It's just a vehicle for people who have a lot of easy money to buy assets, so they don't lose the money, to lose the value. And this leads to ridiculous things like this.
Like even King Dollar, which is like the most trusted fiat currency in this regard, has lost most of its value over the last century. This chart is only going to 2011, so like just half of the years since Afghanistan active, which also leads to a lot of malinvestment in the economy. And of course, if you have saved your money in dollars over time, basically you losing the purchasing power which was behind these dollars originally. The return on savings must also exceed the cost of savings, otherwise no savings occur. Basically, this means when you put your money in the bank or do some investment, you expect that what you receive back in value is higher than if you wouldn't have done this. So if the inflation rate is, for example, 10%, you wouldn't do an investment unless you expect that this investment is making you more than like 10%. If the inflation rate is artificially lowered to 0 or even negative, you start doing a lot of probably bad investments, because now even investing money for 0% is better than putting in the bank when the bank is charging you basically 1% per year. Which means that also, compared to like the example which we had before, you will have a destruction of the production structure of the economy. And without some money, the savings, consumer prices go haywire. I mean, they are not in the natural order anymore.
One example how the system is, something is wrong with it. With unsound money, it's from Denmark. They have negative interest rates. The banks, when they borrow money, they have to give less money back. And so, in order to stimulate the economy, the Danish banks give out mortgages for houses, for real estate, for negative interest rates. So, what they're doing basically is punishing savers. So if you save money, the government punishes you and puts it into the real estate market, and it doesn't sound like it's sustainable.
While in turn you get paid when you take out the mortgage to build houses, even if you might not need houses. So you just keep building houses even if there's not actually people to live in, and that might work for a while, but at some point it will readjust, and basically then you find out, okay, we have wasted a lot of resources because all these people who could have done something really productive just build houses which nobody needs. And I mean, in the short term, whatever, you have people working in jobs and producing things, but over the long run, these people could have done something much more productive, which actually would be needed to improve the wealth structure of society, because nobody benefits from building houses which nobody needs.
Yeah, this is the difference between a sound money system and a not sound money system. And in a sound money system, the money itself is the product of a free market. So there are mechanisms that adjust the value of their ups and down spikes in the market, or readjust the value. It's much more efficient than when the government intervenes and adjusts the supply of money or value of the money.
And various economists over like the past few hundred years actually even have been thinking about, okay, how can a monetary system look like that nobody is then like playing around with it and taking its own advantage. And like one quote I think which is very to the point here is from Friedrich Hayek, Nobel Prize winner in economics in 1975, who said like the only way basically to ever have some money again is to build basically a monetary system where nobody is in control of. Because as soon as you have somebody in control of, even if they initially promise, okay, we make it all sound and well, that's not going to work in the long run. For example, you have the US dollar was backed by gold until 1971, so they promised you, okay, 1 ounce of gold is like $35, maybe for $35, you get 1 ounce of gold. Yeah, nowadays it's almost $1,500 which you need to buy 1 ounce of gold. What happened in 1971? The Americans have fought the war here in Vietnam, which cost them a lot of money, and then they said, like, okay, now the dollar is not backed by gold anymore because they didn't have enough gold for all the dollars which they would bring to finance the war. And yeah, I mean, you just will have, when somebody has the ability to create new money basically out of thin air, at some point they always will start tampering with it. So to simplify this a bit, think about you sit with like 10 people around the table, and each of you has like one monetary unit, and there's like 10 apples on the table. So everybody of you can buy one apple. But if one of these guys has the ability to bring new money, and suddenly brings himself another 10 monetary units, and suddenly the price per apple is going to be like 2 monetary units. So he can buy suddenly half of the supply, while the rest of the people who still have their 1 monetary unit only can buy half an apple. And if you have basically this power just to bring money out of thin air, at some point you always will start playing around with it, because it gives you certain power over people. For example, you can say, okay, I print my money and I buy some apples, and okay, I give this guy an extra apple and this guy an extra apple. It's not like a natural order. So why is Bitcoin sound money? Some very basic tenets. It has a fixed supply, so it cannot be inflated. And what's more important for all is that there's no central entity backing it. Because as soon as you have the single point of failure, at some point it always will be incentivized to take advantage of the system. Furthermore, it's censorship resistant for storing and transferring your wealth. So if you have control over your private keys, nobody can take it from you. And you can transfer it to anybody around the world, any third party in between, which also never has been possible in the history of mankind before. Because before, if you wanted to transfer value directly, you had to meet the person, you had to give him a gold coin or, let's say, fiat currency, even then you have to give it directly. And you could do transfers only with some intermediaries in between, which would have been, for example, like a bank or notice. It was also kind of like working bankers basically, which made it possible. If during the Crusades, people wanted to transfer money from Amsterdam to Jerusalem, and they also had like these Templar Knights, which were like kind of the early bankers and helped people transfer money. You don't need this anymore. So for the first time in history, it's possible that you can send money to anybody around the world with any third party. The goal here is that this serves as a reliable source of value, which means that if you make an investment, you always judge it against, okay, does this investment basically outperform versus against just holding, in this case, my Bitcoins. So if the capital appreciation of Bitcoin is slightly higher than that investment, you will hold the Bitcoins. You don't do these mal investments in the economy. While with like currency which keeps inflating away, if you have Venezuelan bolivar, you just want to get rid of it because tomorrow you can just buy half of it. So you will just buy potatoes. I heard in Argentina people were buying up cars because even if cars are generally bad investment, because as soon as you drive it off the lot, it's just half the value, but it was better investment to store than cars than keeping the Argentinian peso. So, yeah, back to what we said earlier in the presentation, it allows for long-term savings. Investments will only take place if the projected benefits long-term outweighing the simple saving of money. You will have therefore more efficient capital structure in the economy, which in the end will lead into more long-term oriented investment activities and higher sustainability.
So is everyone here familiar with Bitcoin? Do you know everyone knows what it is? Most of you? Yeah, so basically, I think the most important thing is that there are only 21 million Bitcoins. There's no possible, no way to print more Bitcoin or produce more Bitcoins. That's what it makes it hard money. Before that, hard money was usually money that was backed by an asset. So the gold-backed currency was hard money because it was backed by gold. So you could exchange the money and the currency at a fixed rate of gold. Bitcoin is not backed by an asset, but it is very costly to produce. It's backed by mathematics type. You need to invest energy to produce Bitcoin at a predictable rate. So there's no way to handle it. That makes Bitcoin hard.
Any more questions? We still have 10 minutes to go, so I'm happy to answer any questions.
So I know basically nothing about Bitcoins, maybe it's a stupid question, but
Okay.
the last thing you said, if in the future there would be some like super machine